Alex.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. Just a bit of housekeeping. We will do about 30 minutes of presentation followed by Q&A. The presentation will be recorded, so please keep that in mind when it comes to just volume in the room. The acoustics aren't great, but we will turn the recording off for questions so we can feel like we have a free and open conversation and use the time for our two guests. So on behalf of the ANC, very honored and privileged to be able to introduce Hagop, Djernazian and Setrag, Balian, who've come all the way from Jerusalem to speak with members of Congress, with staffers, and to brief Capitol Hill today, and of course now with our community on the situation unfolding in Jerusalem's Armenian quarter. They've been here for less than 24 hours. They head out about 30 minutes after this briefing ends. So they've been working throughout the entire day, and we're incredibly grateful for their time, their energy, their enthusiasm. I'm sure a lot of you have been following this issue, but when we saw the SavetheArQ movement spring up about a year and a half ago to protect the Armenian quarter in the face of violent settler attacks and property developers trying to engage in these land grabs of what has been Armenian land since the 4th century, the 1700-year-old continuous presence of Armenians in Jerusalem's old city, a bastion of our Christian identity and our faith, a symbol of the diversity and cohesion of a tradition of multi-religious, multi-confessional, multi-ethnic, harmonious coexistence in Jerusalem. We could not have been more inspired and proud of the work that was being done. As we now see from Artsakh and Azerbaijan's ethnic cleansing of the Armenian population in September 2023 and the ongoing ramifications and reverberations of that today for security of the Armenian state, we see what is unfolding in Syria and the threats posed to our Armenian community that has inhabited those lands for centuries and now faces persecution and are incredibly vulnerable to new regime in power there. We see another existential struggle for our existence in our ancestral homelands unfolding in Jerusalem with the Armenian quarter. So we are incredibly grateful for the insight, the activism, and the work that these two incredible men have been conducting on the ground every day, holding down the fort, pushing back against attempts to take over the quarter, push back against illegal land grabs and dirty deals. And I think this is a cause that our community should rally around. This is not just an Armenian issue. This isn't just about land and territory. This is about ensuring the unique cultural, diverse tapestry of Jerusalem and the status quo stays in place. This is about religious freedom. This is about human dignity, minority rights in a very tumultuous, turbulent region of the world. And I could not think of two better people to explain this very delicate situation. So thank you both for being here. Thank you for taking the time and for allowing us to be a part of this advocacy with you. And I will turn over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alex, for that introduction, and a big thank you to the ANCA for organizing this conference presentation. My name is Setrag Balian. I'm the co-founder of SavetheArQ together with Hagop Djernazian. I will be giving you the historic introduction, the history of the Armenian quarter, the Armenian presence in the Holy Land, and Hagop will tackle the legal issues and the legal battles that we've been facing. So as you know, Armenians were the first to adopt Christianity in 301, and Armenian pilgrims started arriving in the Holy Land quite early. So 4th century upwards, already an Armenian community started arriving in Jerusalem. In the 7th century, the Armenian Patriarchate will be established. We will have our first patriarch in 638, Patriarch Abraham, and it will be the longest continuous, uninterrupted presence, Christian presence, institution presence in the Holy Land. For example, the Greeks were expelled during Umar ibn al-Khattab's rule for about 100 years, and the Greek Patriarch used to sit in Constantinople. In the 11th, 12th century, Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi will expel the Catholics, which will be absent from the Holy Land for 600-700 years. The Armenians are the only ones who will stay as an institution. The 97th current Patriarch has continuously been ruling from Jerusalem since the inception of the Armenian Patriarchate. So the golden age of the Armenian presence in the Holy Land will be during the Crusader period. As you know, the Kingdom of Cilicia played a pivotal role in the Crusades, and so Armenians had a lot to benefit from that. We had actually 5 Armenian queens in Jerusalem. The most known is Melisandre. We also had Arda, Morphia, and it will be under, for example, an Armenian queen, that the Holy Sepulchre will be united under one church. The Holy Sepulchre, where Christ was risen, used to be 2-3 different churches. Under the Armenian queen, they will be reunited. And of course, as in every diaspora, the Armenian community has given immensely to the environment, to the shaping of the city, to the development of the city. Namely, the first printing press of Jerusalem was in the Armenian Quarter, printed its first book in 1833. The first studio photography, we had the Patriarch, who was a big photographer, Patriarch Yesai Garabedian, and because he became Patriarch, couldn't continue taking pictures, he decided to establish a photography school, and then a photography studio. The first photography studio in Jerusalem will be Armenian. Of course, pioneers in all sorts of crafts and trades, jewelers, watchmakers, ceramists. Armenians have had huge influence in Jerusalem, and we've lived throughout different rulers, conquerors, occupiers of Jerusalem. Also, another interesting story, for example, when Napoleon reached Jaffa and his soldiers were wounded, they were treated by the Armenian monks in Jaffa, in the convent of Jaffa, and as a thank you, he gave a piece of his tent, the cloth of his tent, as a gift to the Armenian church. And to this day, the Armenian church uses that piece of cloth as garments for the clergy. So a long and rich and thorough history. In Jerusalem, we have two types of Armenians. We have the old Armenians, we call them the Karakatsis. So these are the locals that came pre-genocide. So even some trace back their ancestry in Jerusalem and their presence to the 12th century, 13th century during the Crusader period. And we have, of course, as in every community, the survivors of the genocide that arrived in 1915 upwards. So the Armenian quarter is one of 4 quarters in Jerusalem. You have the Christian quarter, the Muslim quarter, Jewish quarter, and finally the Armenian quarter. So only by hearing that, you can understand the importance of the Armenian presence. So every monotheistic religion has its own quarter, and the Armenians, a small nation of 10 million people, have also their own quarter. And it is actually one of the most important quarters. Strategically, it is located on the highest point of the old city. It sits atop Mount Zion, which is historically and biblically very important as well. And it is also, for example, the only car access road passes right through the Armenian quarter, leading to the Jewish quarter and the Wailing Wall. Armenians have also equal rights in all the holy sites in Jerusalem, mainly in the Holy Sepulchre. We are 1/3 together with the Catholics and the Greeks, and same for the Nativity Church. Catholics, we're talking about over 1 billion worshippers. With the Greeks, they're representatives of some other Orthodox churches as well, so they represent hundreds of millions of people. And finally, again, small nation, Armenians hold 1/3 of that of the rights in these churches. So the Armenian presence, as you hear, is a very, very important presence, and we hold immense power that is unfortunately sometimes not used to the fullest of its capacity, but that is what we have. So we have also the Cow's Garden. Today we'll be talking about the Cow's Garden. Historically, it's been named the Armenian Gardens. We actually have maps from the 16th century upwards that show this as the Armenian Gardens. You have them in Austrian maps, French maps, many European maps that called this area the Armenian Gardens. It was actually a place of refuge for many refugees that arrived before they were housed inside the convent. It was also a site where pilgrims used to arrive and put up tents and caravans. We used to have actually up until the 1920s, more than 10,000 Armenian pilgrims visiting Jerusalem yearly. 10,000, that is a huge number. And also Cow's Garden, so there were actually cows on that property. There were cows, other animals, agricultural land. So the community used to live off of that land. So we have direct historical, economical, cultural links to this land. The land in question is 19,000 square meters, the whole of the Cow's Garden properties, but it is today separated into different properties. Also worth mentioning that the Armenian quarter holds immense geopolitical and political importance. For example, in 2000s, during the Camp David negotiations between Yasser Arafat, Ehud Barak, and Bill Clinton, there were 2 major issues. These were, by the way, the negotiations that were the closest to reach a final solution on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and two major issues remained unsolved. First was the right of return of the Palestinian refugees, which amounts to 5 million people today, so a huge problem. And the second was the Armenian quarter. So it was already agreed that the Christian and Muslim quarters would be part of a future Palestinian state, more or less agreed. The Jewish quarter, naturally, Israeli state, and remained the question of the Armenian quarter. There were plans, also thoughts of dividing the Armenian quarter, but that is also when Arafat famously says, "I am Arafatian," the famous Armenian suffix, and says we will never allow for the Armenian quarter to be split into two or split from its sister quarters, the Christian and Muslim quarters. The Armenian quarter is also one of the, if not the safest quarter. I mean, you have a lot of rabbis as well that say they feel the safest when they walk in the Armenian quarter. So it exemplifies that coexistence that Alex was talking about, that multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious aspect of the city. We've always maintained good relations with all our neighbors, the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter, and we hope to continue to maintain those good relations. So in 2021, there was an illegal land deal that was signed. The details of the deal will be presented by Hagop, and the illegality, all the legal aspects. But it was signed in 2021. And the first question that will pop into your mind, like, what happened for 2 years? Where was everybody? Why didn't the community mobilize back then? So something you need to understand also about the structure of the patriarchate. Patriarchate has the Armenian Patriarch of Jerusalem, who is the president, like the president, he's the head of the church. Then you have the Holy Synod, which is composed of 8 priests, which acts like the government. And then you have the General Assembly of the St. James Brotherhood, which acts like Congress and is comprised of 30 priests. And as you hear, there are no community members, there are no lay members inside the administration of the Armenian Patriarchate, unfortunately. Actually, all over the world, all the Armenian churches, they have community members inside the church. This dates back to 1870s when the Armenian National Constitution was adopted. Started realizing that the religious leaders of the Armenians were not only religious leaders, but also socio-political leaders. So they decided to regulate that relationship by introducing a system where community members and clergy members would decide together, would be fully involved in the decision-making process. Unfortunately, in the 1930s, when it was the British mandate for Palestine, the British decided to remove the community members from that system in order for them to manipulate and corrupt individuals in an easier way. No checks and balances. You just need 1 or 2 people to corrupt, basically, and to manipulate. So 2021, the deal is signed, but we have no information. We know nothing about the deal. We don't know the details about the deal. We don't know under what conditions the deal was signed. And of course, something to bear in mind also is that the Armenian community in Jerusalem is very dependent on the Patriarchate. Most of our homes belong to the Armenian Patriarchate. A lot of us, a lot of the community members work inside the Patriarchate, inside the school, inside the library, for example. Which I forgot to mention, by the way, in the Armenian quarter, we have an Armenian library, Kalusky Benkian Library. We have the Mardigian Museum, which was recently reopened thanks to the efforts of the Mardigian family. We have the only Armenian school in the old city. We have 3 community centers, and we have 3 churches inside the Armenian convent. One of the most famous is St. James, where the head of Santiago de Compostela, which is a huge pilgrimage site, the head actually lies in Jerusalem. And also in Surtoros, we have a huge collection of the most important Armenian manuscripts. We have about 4,000 manuscripts that were done by Toros Roslin, which is the biggest collection after the Madena Taran in Armenia. So as the deal was signed, 2 years later, in 2023, we start hearing more rumors that it's actually not only the parking lot, but other areas that are included in the deal. And in April of 2023, the private company with whom the deal was signed enters the parking lot and takes physical possession of the parking lot. So that is when we start realizing And the community members start seeing that this is actually reality, this is happening. We are starting to lose land, and the private company starts intimidating the Armenians that park there. They even stopped Hagop and I from parking in the parking lot. So a lot of things start happening, and Hagop and I decide to try and mobilize the community. By the way, I said that nobody did anything from 2021 to 2023, but Hagop has actually been at the forefront of this since even 2019, where there were only speculations of something happening. So in 2023, Hagop and I decide to try and mobilize the community. Obviously, this is a very difficult task, as I explained. The dynamics and the balance of power is heavily tilted towards the patriarchate. So it was a very difficult task. And of course, we had to also deal with defeatist mentalities of people saying, oh, it's already sold, it's already given, we have no say in this, they already gave the land, you know, typical sometimes of Armenians, unfortunately. So we decided to try and mobilize the community. We tried a few times to confront the priests. So one of the masterminds of this deal was Djernazian, who was the director of real estate. And we tried to confront him. He was relieved of his duties in January of 2023. And we tried to confront him. We confronted him a bit. We didn't get answers. We tried to mobilize the community. Nobody was moving. And one day, Hagop and I decided to sit down and have a serious talk about where this is going. Because without the help of the community, we would just end up being sacrificial lambs, basically. And we have to fight against a whole system that has been established for a while, a whole state apparatus, perhaps, extremist groups. So we said, let's give this last try. Let's try and organize a protest, make it or break it, you know? And this was May 9th. It was at night, I remember vividly, came to the factory, we discussed it. And here it demands a bit of faith and spirituality, because everything that happened after, it's as if everything happened at the right place at the right time. So the next day I'm at work, Hagop is at university, and suddenly we get a call that the priest who was relieved of his duties was defrocked, Djernazian, and he was given 1 week to leave the Armenian quarter and to leave Jerusalem. We were against that decision from the beginning, because once you defrock a priest as a church, you lose all power over him. And he still had a lot of information that he did not share. He still had, the patriarchate still didn't have all the contract. I mean, it was chaotic. So we didn't want him to leave until he gave answers at least and face the consequences of his actions. And so we get the call that Barit is getting ready to leave. And we had created a WhatsApp group because with the arrival of the current government, there was an exponential rise in attacks against Christians, hate crimes against Armenians, also, you know, graffitis on walls, death to Christians, death to Armenians, spittings on our priests, excuse my French, but urinating on the convent walls. So it was a very chaotic period. So we decided to create the WhatsApp group in order to protect the community members. If anybody needed something or was under danger, they could write in the group. So we write in the group that the defrocked priest is getting ready to leave, and we need to mobilize. And that is when we had about 30, 40 young people coming to in front of his house and stopping him from leaving and demanding answers. Obviously, he was locked in. He wouldn't give answers. So we decided to call an impromptu protest. That was the first unofficial protest, May 10th, 5 p.m., everybody in the grand courtyard of the St. James Monastery, and the protest starts. And we give our speeches. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you have 60, 70 people in front of you. We're done with the speeches and we look at each other. What do we do now? Like, you have all these people in front of you. All of a sudden, we get news that the Israeli police has entered the Armenian convent through the back door to escort the priest out. So the whole protest moves back to front of his house, of the priest's house, I mean, it started with 70, became 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, with Artsakh flags, tricolor flags, patriotic songs, children, women, you name it. But of course, as we increased in numbers, the Israeli police increased in numbers, the border police increased in numbers, special forces, IDF. So we were faced with 30, 40 of these police and soldiers mixed. And we had to take a decision. It was a tough decision, but we had to come to a compromise with the police because, you know, you have children, you have women, you have a lot of responsibility. You don't want anybody to get hurt. And they were starting to, you know, starting to let us know that if you do not move, we will remove you physically and violently. So we agreed to do like 2 rows of people. And look, this was a very difficult position. This was a very difficult time, you know. Djernazian is actually the only Jerusalemite Armenian priest. He's still Armenian, you know, he was defrocked, yes, but it was a very difficult decision, but we had to send a message. We had to send a message to all these people that if you betray your nation, if you betray your community, if you betray your church, you have to pay the price. And you can't just take all your stuff and any money, if any, again, alleged corruption. If any money was taken, just take your money and enjoy it somewhere in Pasadena, where he is located now. So we had to send that message. We had to make people understand that you cannot just have a comfortable life. Because even in the past, Jerusalem was known for being a milking cow. You know, everybody would come, benefit, profit, and then just leave and enjoy, quote unquote, their lives. So it was a difficult decision, but we did that walk of shame. Maybe a lot of you saw it. It was videos all over the internet. And he was escorted out by the police and by the soldiers. And after that, every Friday, we organized a protest on a weekly basis. Every Friday for 6 months, we were protesting. We had more than 200, 300 journalists cover the story, from AP to Reuters to CNN to BBC to Al Jazeera. A lot of pressure started mounting on the Patriarchate from Armenian organizations, as well from the Armenian Catholicos in Armenia and also in the Catholicos of Kilikia. And so 6 months later, finally, the Armenian Patriarchate sends a cancellation letter to the private company. Obviously, this is a unilateral move. You cannot just cancel a contract by sending a letter. But anyway, I will stop here. Hagop will take over to explain everything that happened afterwards.
May I understand? Yeah, it's much easier for me. So thank you very much for coming today and joining us. It is an honor to be here, and we thank the ANCA for hosting us and helping us organizing today's meetings and today's event. So I will talk about the legal proceedings and the contract, so you can understand better the deal, and then also about the legal proceedings. The map in front of you is the map of the Armenian quarters. The red lines are the borders of the Armenian quarter, and the green lines are the lines of the Armenian Gardens property, which is 19,000 square meters, located on the highest point in the old city and the only open space left in the old city of Jerusalem. Out of the 19,000 square meters, 11,500 square meters were leased in 2021, which is the Cow's Garden, the big Goveru Bardes Cow's Garden, 5 houses of Armenian families, the private Patriarchate Garden, private parking lot of the Patriarch, and the seminary hall of the Alex and Mari Manugyan. And also recently we discovered that parts of the Patriarchate's building are also included in the deal. So the contract was signed by the Patriarch, the Grand Sacristan, and the former real estate director. It's a 98-year-long term lease. The Patriarchate received a lump sum of $2 million, and in return, they will also receive an annual income of $300,000, which both are laughable amounts. I mean, we always talk that a house here in DC of 16 square meters, or in New York or in Boston, costs much more than 11,500 square meters. So you can understand how corrupt this deal is. The company, which his name is Zana Garden, is registered in Israel and in the United Arab Emirates. Both of the investors, Danny Rubinstein and George Warwar Haddad, they are shareholders in the company, but both of them they have alleged ties to settler organizations. And this deal represents 25% of the Armenian quota. So you can understand how important, strategic part is the Cow's Garden, and the loss of it will have a huge impact on the entire Armenian community and Armenian church in Jerusalem. So following the cancellation letter that the Patriarchate sent, and it is important to mention that the Patriarchate in its letter doesn't mention the community as the reason why it canceled the deal. They mentioned three arguments why they canceled the deal or sent the cancellation letter. First one is misrepresentation, that the two investors, which they represented themselves in front of the Patriarchate as if they have the ability or have the background to build hotels, or they are owners of hotels all over the world, which is a total lie. And they have also ties with the different settler organizations. The second argument is the size of the land. The Patriarchate agreed on 7,500 square meters, which is here, the Cow's Garden, and not on 11,500 square meters. But unfortunately, 11,500 square meters, black on white, is written on the first page of the contract. Yeah. The third argument is corruption, that the priest was bribed by the company to push for the implementation of this contract. So the community is not mentioned in the reasons or arguments why the Patriarchate decided to send the cancellation letter. And these arguments are also in their lawsuit. So following the cancellation letter, the company, instead of starting legal proceedings, they decided to send bulldozers, Arab settlers, different groups. For example, Arabs were hired by the company, and they were told by the company that they are going to protect the Armenians from the settlers that are attacking them. So you can understand the game that the company wanted to play here to change the dynamics within the different communities in Jerusalem. So in the picture, you can see the boys, the clergy standing in front of the bulldozer. It is Setrag and in front of the bulldozers, we were standing days and nights. Whenever we heard the sound of the bulldozer, we used to run and stand in front of it because they were already took possession of the parking lot, and the cancellation letter triggered them, and they wanted to take over these properties as well. So we stopped them by standing in front of the bulldozers, and then we decided that we have to maintain presence on the ground. So from October 2023, and it's been more than 460 days that the boys and the community members maintain presence on the ground. While we are sitting here, there are boys and community members that they guard and spend time in the tent protecting the area from the illegal encroachments of the company. So you can see there were many attacks. I guess most of you saw the videos all over the media where the settlers arrived and they with the stones and attack dogs. So this deal, as I mentioned, represents 25% of the Armenian quota. It's a huge part of our heritage, of your heritage in Jerusalem. Another picture, the ramparts of the old city, the bulldozer. Basically, here is the investor, one of them, George.
It's George?
Yes, it's George.
Oh.
Here you can see again the boys standing. We used to park our cars behind the wall to prevent from the bulldozers to advance. And this is the famous tent. I guess most of you heard about it and you saw some pictures how people sit there. So they were trying to build 7-star hotel, but we built it instead of them. And whenever you visit Jerusalem next time, you have a place to stay, no charge. So feel free to come. There is a kitchen, there are places to sleep, community members bring food. You can just grab a coffee or tea, spend some time. with the boys and with the other committee members. This is the beginning. This is the first few days, but now it's much more advanced. This is the barricade we created in the middle of the Chaos Garden because we didn't repossess the area in one day. It took us months because in Israel there is a law of 30 days. When you possess a property or a place for more than 30 days, then it's very difficult to evict you from that place. So we had to advance step by step and take over the entire area only in January 2024. So this is again the tent. This is my brother who was taken to jail for a night on December 28th when the company launched its biggest attack, and the court released them, two boys, Bedig and Paul, released them, rejected the appeal of the police, and it was a huge victory for us because the court recognized that the people who attacked us were employees of Zana Gardens. So we are using it in our lawsuit, and also the court recognized that the possession of the land is with the Armenians. And the police appealed against the decision of the magistrate court to the district court. And a few days later, we went to the district court, and the district court rejected the appeal of the police. So we had some small victories. I already spoke about the Patriarchate's lawsuit. It was initiated in December 2023. It is important to say that we tried many times to cooperate before launching the different lawsuits. And when the international legal team, Carney, Garo, Arman, Liz, arrived in Jerusalem in June 2023, they met with the Patriarch, they met with the real estate, with the new real estate director at that time, and they were rejected many times. And even our local team asked for many times to meet with the Patriarchate, to meet with the lawyers. They had a meeting with the lawyers, but they were rejected. And then we decided to initiate our own lawsuit. So we initiated our lawsuit in February 2024, exactly almost a year, based on two important arguments. First, the defendants are the Patriarchate and Zana Gardens. Sometimes people try to describe this movement, the SavetheArQ movement, as anti-patriarchate, anti-church, which is absolutely wrong. If you read our lawsuit, the first page, it's written that our lawsuit aims to nullify the deal, the 98-year-long term lease, and is here to support the arguments of the Patriarchate, because we think that the Patriarchate didn't argue all of the arguments in their lawsuit, and we are here to protect the rights of the church and community. So the lawsuit is supported by 365 members above the age of 18, and there are a few here that they signatories to the lawsuit. So above the age of 18, which is a majority of the families in the Armenian community of Jerusalem. The two arguments are the authority and the Waqf. The authority, we argue that the Patriarch, according to the bylaws of the Armenian Patriarchate, had no authority to sign this deal. Back in 2015, the Armenian Patriarchate, the General Assembly, passed a new resolution, a new law, allowing the Patriarchate to lease any real estate, for example, from 1 year to 25 years, from 25 years to 49 years, and there are specific people that can sign these leases. So, for example, leases of 25 to 49 years, the Patriarch, the Grand Sacristan, the head of the Holy Synod, and the head of the General Assembly should sign the deal. The real estate director cannot sign deals above 25 years. And the Holy Synod, the chairman of the Holy Synod and the chairman of the General Assembly must sign the deals. These two didn't sign the 98-year lease. And also we support this argument by attaching the bylaws, the new bylaws, and also a letter signed by 70 members, a majority of the Brotherhood, which back in 2021, 70 members signed a letter demanding from the Patriarch to cancel the deal and to initiate legal proceedings because this deal violated the constitution of the Patriarchate. But there is another important argument which we argue, which is the status of the land. This land, the process to buy this land started in 1574 by the Patriarch at that time, Bishop Andreas. And in 1574, he started the process to buy parts of the land. And during the Ottoman time, in order to buy lands, you had to register them in the Islamic Sharia court as waqf. Waqf, the translation from Arabic to English, is to put a stop. That means waqf properties cannot be leased or sold, and they are for the benefit of the register and for the community or the family that is registered in the trust. So our local team succeeded to discover these historical documents from the Sharia court, and we attached them to the lawsuit. And it's written in the document. This is one page of the document. It says that Bishop Andreas appeared in the Jerusalem in the Sharia court, registered the land as a waqf for the benefit of his family members. But when no one is left from his family, then the trust is transferred automatically to the Jerusalem Armenian Christian community. And so the patriarch is the trustee, is the custodian of the property, and the beneficiaries are the members of the community. That means he is the custodian. He needs to protect the land. He cannot sell it or he cannot lease it. Especially when we support our laws also with Article 23 of the bylaws of the Patriarchate, where it says that the patriarch is the custodian of the national properties. So you can understand how valuable and how important this property is, and it belongs to the nation, and it describes as a national property. And the sentence is here, after his children, أولاد أولاد أولادهم, and على طائفة مصالح الأرمن القاتمين بالقدس الشريف. So in Jerusalem, in the old city of Jerusalem, and you may ask, how do you know that this document is for this land? So it describes the location of the property. So it says that from west and south sides are the ramparts of the old city. So it says that west side, south side are the ramparts of the old city. And the good thing is that the ramparts were built before before buying the property, around 40 years before starting the process. And thanks God they exist now. So there are clear borders, and also the Armenian Patriarchate Road, which is, as Setrag said, the only car access road and one of the main roads in the old city of Jerusalem. And here you can see, this is a picture of the old city of Jerusalem from the 18th century, and you can see the Armenian gardens. Here, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Jewish quarter, the Armenian quarter, the Jaffa Gate, and the Citadel, and the Christian quarter. This is the Holy Sepulchre Church. And this is the only garden within the walls of the old city. And in the Waqf document, it describes it as the only garden, as a huge garden with trees, cisterns, and yeah. And here are the maps that Setrag told you about. You can see that this land is described as the Armenian gardens, the gardens of the Armenians. It depends which map you see. So additional legal developments. So we had a year of legal proceedings. We have first court hearing in September 2025. The Jerusalem District Court appointed a judge in our case, and also the company initiated a counterclaim against the community, suing us for $40 million per year. They accuse us for delaying the so-called 7-star luxury hotel, but they didn't even submit any official request to the Jerusalem municipality to receive a permit to start building the hotel. And whatever they did on the ground was illegal, and whatever we did was legal with our lawyers on the ground. So these are the legal developments. Meanwhile, they were trying many times to dismiss our case by appealing to the court. The court rejected many times their requests, and also to receive extension for the defenses. They accuse us with baseless accusations. And here you can see a group of Israelis and Palestinians visiting the Cow's Garden. From day one, the company tried to use the war to take over the land. They thought that if they use the war, then no one will be interested in the Armenian quarter, and no journalists will report on it, and no Israeli or Palestinian civil societies will be interested, but the opposite happened. And we continue to have weekly visits by groups, Israelis, Palestinians, Christians, Muslims, Jews. They come and visit the Cows Garden and they support the struggle, and they also come and maintain presence on the ground with us. This is the famous barricade. You can see flags of Armenia, and the implications of this deal on the status quo of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem, as Setrag mentioned, is a place where many groups, many communities live, especially inside the old city. And the old city is a place where we all live together, the Armenian community, the Christian, the Jewish, and Muslim communities, and we used to maintain good relations with everyone, with all our neighbors. And this deal will threaten, first of all, the existence of Armenians, but also the existence of Christians in the old city of Jerusalem. As if Christians are not going through an existential threat. There are less than 6,000 Christians living in Jerusalem, and you can understand how huge the threat is to all Christians in Jerusalem, but not only for Christians, but also to the mosaic of Jerusalem, to the status quo of Jerusalem. And we believe in Jerusalem that is open for everyone, for all the religions, for all the groups that believe in the just, that believe in the free Jerusalem. This is a group picture. I didn't prepare the presentation.
Hagop's birthday.
This is my birthday. We used to celebrate birthdays of community members that they come and visit the Cows Garden. And I would like to say a word about the two flags that you see here. The flag of Armenia, and of course the flag of Artsakh, and the flag of the St. James Convent. This struggle is not only for our nation, but also for our church, and our church as a national church, and our nation as a Christian nation. These two flags describe our fight, our struggle for the nation and for the church. Because many times people say, "Oh, you are suing the patriarchate." We heard it in Boston. "Oh, you are doing that. You are going against your own church." No, we are here to protect our church, because first we are protecting the bylaws, and second, we are protecting the rights of the church and the rights of the community. So this is the struggle to protect the church, to protect the community, and this is why we have these two flags. Here is a picture of Diyar and Taraj, presentation of the Lord to the temple. We will celebrate it next month. We used to celebrate it in the Cows Garden in the past, but then the tradition stopped. And we thought to recreate memories in the Cows Garden through cultural events, and this is one of the events where you can see hundreds of people coming, community members after the Huskum, after the evening prayer, because maintaining presence on the ground is not only daily presence, but also cultural events to show Jerusalem that Armenians are there. Here is a dinner. Setrag, I'm sitting. You can see it's much advanced now. Televisions and
Security cameras.
security cameras. This is the Holy Sepulchre Church. It had to be beginning. This is the Patriarchate's building. The houses are here. The garden of the Patriarch is here. Of course, the famous Artsakh flag, because we don't want to lose another Artsakh. And Jerusalem is our spiritual homeland, which we must protect. And we cannot allow for another Artsakh, to lose another Artsakh. And Jerusalem is a place that, as a spiritual homeland, we should all stand for it. And this is why there is a flag in the Cows Garden to remind us that we should fight for it. We should fight for this piece of land. And call to action. And this is why we are gathered here today. First of all, ensure legal protections, condemn violence and intimidation, preserve the status quo, engage with Israeli authorities, and also donate to our legal defense fund. We are not the Patriarchate, we are not the company, we don't sit on millions. We sit on the donations that the Armenian people donate, non-Armenians donate. And we have local legal team that we pay for them, 2 lawyers. One is Israeli Jewish, one is Arab Israeli, and we have another lawyer that works pro bono in Jerusalem. And we have the Armenian lawyers in Chicago and LA, Karni, Garo, Arman, Liz, Ani, that they work, and Saro, that they work pro bono. So our efforts to raise funds go directly to the legal fund, which is registered here in the US. If you scan the QR code, it will lead you to the fund. Feel free to donate. Feel free to give your contribution to this struggle, first by raising awareness and first by helping us raising funds, because we wish to continue with the legal proceedings. And we know that our lawsuit can protect this land, can protect the Armenian quarter with your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're devoted to making sure that you don't miss your flight.
We can miss the flight.
Okay, then fine, we're set. Okay,
I think we're out of time, it's okay.
I think we want to wrap you up by 7:20, get you on the road.
Yeah.
And so we have a couple modes for some questions. I'll just like editorialize for a second by saying every Armenian challenge throughout our long history has been met by young Armenians who somehow find a way, right? I think just think well, in the most positive, you know, like Armenians find a way, and it's usually young people who do that, and we're blessed. And I say that as a dad that I don't know your folks, but I feel like I do. I think we maybe our families are very similar. With that, are there some questions that we can? Yes.
If I can,
Please.
so we will turn to questions. We'll have 20 minutes of Q&A. We're going to stop the recording so we can have a free and open conversation, but we will be taking questions through the Zoom. So
Facebook, Twitter,
Twitter, or everywhere this is being live streamed. And we also have some submitted questions beforehand. So we'll try to get through as much as we can in 20 minutes, but we want to respect these guys' time and make sure we can get them to the airport so they can continue their
you can join us.
advocacy. So it's a recording.
Okay, bottom correct. Okay, please.
Is there anything I bought it? And would it make any difference? You see what I mean? Is there any pressure to apply? I mean, I assume there's no, ability to submit an extradition request on the part of Israel or I don't know, Jordan, for all I know. But anyway, is there any pressure that can be applied to him?
We are working on some things, unfortunately, right now they're kind of confidential, but I will be sure to update you along the way. But yes, we are trying to, of course, people have to pay the price for their mistakes.
Is there any like public pressure? I mean, I'm okay, you know what I mean? In other words, can he show his face in Los Angeles?
I mean,
He goes to church.
because of that walk, I think a lot of people have confronted him as well. A lot of Jerusalemite Armenians that live today in Los Angeles, but yeah, we have to take steps, and we will be sure to take steps.
Hopefully, we'll hear about it
Soon.
Okay.
Sarah Lee's here. See Tufik is here. Any questions?
Yes.
How much faith do you guys have in the Israeli judicial system?
This is
So far, it seems that they worked in your favor twice.
it's a question we get a lot. Look, we have no other recourse. First of all, Jerusalem is de facto controlled by Israeli jurisdiction, and the Israeli judicial remains somewhat independent today. Of course, there are now movements to try and change that, but as of now, it remains independent. Also, something to bear in mind is that Israel does not have a constitution, so everything is based on precedents and jurisprudence. So any decision taken on this can affect other cases. There are also cases, for example, of Jewish Waqf properties and other communities' properties. So we are very confident in the legal arguments that we have, and hopefully, I mean, it's not Geneva, I can't say 90%. If it were Geneva, I would say it. But we are very confident in our legal team as well. They work day and night. They're really with us. We have one Israeli Jewish lawyer. We have one Arab Israeli Palestinian. I don't know how he identifies himself. Yes, we have both, and they're very invested. I mean, they really believe in the cause. They don't easily take these kind of cases, but they took it and they are really engaged. They're really motivated to take this through, and we will go to the end.
I also would like to add something about the faith and the passion we have in the case, especially the relations with the local lawyers. I mean, we have like family relations with the international legal team and the local legal team. And one of our Israeli lawyers, when we had 5 meetings with the community in the seminary hall, where we share the legal proceedings and we share the updates. And our community, they know that we work very transparent with them. At the end of the meeting, he said that I have the honor to represent the Armenian community of Jerusalem in the Jerusalem District Court and fight with them for this property. He said that this property should remain with Armenians.
This is an
Israeli Jewish lawyer. And we have a huge respect to him. We work with him daily. I mean, while we're here, even WhatsApp calls and texts, updating them what is happening. So you feel that they are not working to get money. Of course, any lawyer is being paid, but they work for a cause which is important for us, but it is also important for them because they are Jerusalemites and they believe in Jerusalem, which is equal, which is open for everyone. And we are confident, but no one knows what can happen, but it's good always to keep the faith and the passion in this issue.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask the online and pre-submitted questions. So for every two in the room, we'll ask one from online. The Canadians are both online and submitted questions ahead of time. Attorneys and community
Online?
members, not in-house, those who are on Zoom. They're asking, what can they do from Canada to help?
As we explained, our friends in Canada, first of all, engage with all your authorities to engage with the Israeli authorities to ensure fair, transparent legal proceedings, and also to advocate for the preservation of the Armenian culture, and also to help us raise funds so we can pay for our legal proceedings, which is for now, this is one of the reasons why we came to the East Coast, to raise awareness and also to raise funds, because we go through many challenges.
If I may just add something, there was talks about Artsakh, and Armenians have a tendency to take things for granted. Artsakh was 3,500 years continuously inhabited by Armenians, and we always say, unfortunately, we saw what happened, what unfolded. Today, we have a handful of Armenians, perhaps in Artsakh, if any, and we lost that. Now we can play the blame game, blame each other, find culprits, but as for now, and I will say for now, it is lost. And here we have another Artsakh in front of us. This is 1,700 years of Armenian continuous presence. 1,700. This is another Artsakh. So this is the time for Armenians to be proactive, not to wait and say, oh, Gihishek, Jerusalem, we used to have a convent, we used to have Goveru Bardes. No, it's time to take action. Obviously, you can help with raising awareness and spreading the news, but we really also need the financial help to keep this going. And we hope that Armenians will join us in this struggle. It is a very important struggle. The Armenian world can be ruled from Jerusalem. That is how important Jerusalem is. And so we hope that you will join us in our struggle, and we will, for once, be proactive rather than reactive. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
please?
So what I hear from you guys, I realize that there is an apparent violation of human rights here. Like I'm just calling myself, putting in outside of this conversation. There is an apparent violation of human rights. As I work with human rights in the UN, so I'm thinking of, do you guys have any connections out of Armenian communities and out of even Christian communities, like towards like even international court, that we can reach something that, I mean, this is even in the Arafat time, you were saying like they couldn't resolve this because this is Armenian, it should remain Armenian. It's not like one side. And so do you have anything like then,
So we first have to try everything locally, which means having the district court, then Supreme Court if needed, and then the international level, of course, is in our plans, but it's still very early to reach to these courts. But meanwhile, we engage with the international with stakeholders. We had meetings in the UN with the French delegation, with the Canadian, with the Armenian delegation. We look forward to having more meetings when we go back to New York, and in a few days to continue meetings with other delegations. We have good relations with the local diplomatic missions in Jerusalem, with the French mission, with the US and other embassies and consulates. So we do think that internationally this issue must be raised, and we also think that we should work internationally, but legally we should first go through the local legal proceedings and then think what will be done in the future.
But we have raised the questions of religious minorities and religious freedom, even today with congressmen and senators, and human rights abuses and the police bias and the involvement of extremist groups. So we continue raising that so that it's talked about, so that there's pressure also on the Israeli authorities to respect all of that as well.
I see Kyle here from Churches for Middle East Peace. I don't think there's not a handful of people in this city who know this type of issue better than Kyle, so please.
Thank you. No. So just two quick questions. First, I'd just be curious to know, to the extent that you're able to share the reception that you received in your meetings today on Capitol Hill, and what types of commitments, if anything, those offices made. And then I think secondly, one of the challenges that we would have from doing advocacy here is that members of Congress are very reluctant to engage in anything related to Israel-Palestine, and if they see, well, someone did sign the agreement, even if maybe they didn't have the rights, they still signed it. And why are we going to get into a dispute about a contract that was signed, as another country? And so I'm just curious how you respond to that.
So the problem was that there's a new administration, a lot of things are shifting and changing. So everybody's waiting for the dust to settle on that, but they were all very supportive. And of course, there's the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but today it's very polarized in American politics and politics worldwide. So we concentrated on that aspect of the Armenian presence, of the Christian presence, of human rights, religious minorities, religious freedoms, and they were very receptive from both sides of the aisle. We had a briefing with congressional staffers, had Republicans and Democrats, and they stayed the whole briefing, which is very telling as well. I think Alex also can develop on that.
Yeah, I mean, we had a very good range of meetings today from 3 senators, 3 House members, including 2 of the most outspoken advocates for the rights of Palestinians in the context of the conflict, Rashida Tlaib and Senator Sanders' teams. We also met with 2 of the most outspoken advocates for the Armenian people, now Senator Schiff and Congressman Pallone, who joined the meeting by phone and has visited the Armenian quarter and shared some of his experiences there as well as others who have been consistent advocates when it comes to pushing back against settler violence in the West Bank, who've taken particular interest in this issue. And that includes Senator Van Hollen's team and Senator Kaysen from Illinois. So we had, I think, very productive and targeted conversations designed to, engage with the people who've been most outspoken and vocal, and also find that nexus between those who've been active on our issues, maybe not so outspoken on some of the issues affecting Jerusalem and communities in Israel and Palestine, and those who have been. And I think one thing that we've been able to do as the ANC throughout our advocacy for many years is bring together very diverse coalitions of people who may not otherwise see eye to eye on a lot of issues, but do see value in this. And I think one thing that both Hagop and Setrag did an incredible job of conveying is this isn't just about 11,000 square meters on a map. This is a question of religious freedom. This is a question of minority rights, human dignity. This is about the precedent that would be set if these property developers and settlers get away with what they're doing, and what that would mean for cohesion and intercommunal harmony in Jerusalem, which is something that outside of just our identity as Armenians, as part of that community, the millennia now, have a responsibility to protect and uphold and and make sure that cohesion continues to exist. And I think the work that you've been doing in building bridges with all of these communities, whether it be the Jewish communities, Muslim communities, other Christian communities, is incredibly commendable. Some of the things that we're going to be looking at down the line will be along the lines of how do we make sure that this government, this new administration, is putting some degree of pressure on Israel when it comes to transparency in these trials, when it comes to looking at the new nominee for the ambassador to Israel. How do we ensure that this issue is front and center? How do we get future ambassador Hagop to go to the Armenian border? But also, how do we connect this issue to the plight of others who I think in this polarizing environment been very hard to broach? I think one unique thing that we have is that as a Christian community, there has been a little bit more openness and willingness to engage on this issue than otherwise when it comes to Palestinian rights. And I think at the same time, these are mutually complementary struggles. The things that we do, whether it be in preserving harmony in the Armenian quarter, but even looking beyond that, looking at the implications for advocating for the right of return for Armenians to ANCA. All of these things connect. I think we're finding a way to build a diverse, cohesive coalition around these issues. I was very encouraged, not only by the content of those meetings, but also the congressional briefing that we held. We had 45 to 50 congressional offices represented from the Senate side, House side, Republicans, senior leadership of both parties there. So I think it's a very good indication of a greater willingness to be outspoken and active on this issue. And as we look towards the future of the region under this administration with the ceasefire in place and knock on wood it holds, there is, I think, a new opportunity for us to be a part of that conversation and play our part in bringing people together. And I think that's what all of this was about. And great commendation to you guys for the work that they did and how powerful they advocated in meetings today.
Yes,
I saw one hand in the back. Maybe we'll,
So
if we
what
can
is-
wrap up.
You know, looking and listening to this, you need obviously cash and you need a massive explosion in terms of PR. So one of the things that I would say to you is change the narrative a little, turn the narrative. Loss of space in the Holy Land. Now you need to talk to Order of the Holy Sepulchre. We have a gala here where we pay $1,200 a head. The meal doesn't cost $1,200. It costs $2. The rest goes into a kitty that funds operations. And if you look at Holy Sepulchre, every year they publish a list. We paid for this, we paid for a well, we paid for houses, we paid. You need something like that where you're going to make big cash. You invite 1,000 Armenians to come to Washington, D.C., not the other place, here. And you need all those senators, all those people, and all of these people, especially this guy with this cool hair. That's pretty cool. Is that natural, that thing?
Yeah, I think it started,
I'm not gonna tell you I'm jealous. I'm not gonna tell you I'm jealous, but it looks really cool. Okay, but if you put 1,000 people like that together, you like getting dressed up?
Me?
Yes. How about you? Okay, boom, there you go. And get people together, get all of the important stars, senators, et cetera, State Department here in Washington, charge money. I'm Italian, so I'm not Armenian. We have NIAC. We have a gala every year, 1,200 a head, 2,000 top Italians. Okay, Pelosi's there, Stallone's there. You name a name, they're there.
So you're gonna organize it?
Yeah.
Is that what you say?
In the vein of the Middle East, for a small fee, I will help you. Okay.
Have a volunteer, folks.
Okay, very good. Thank you very.
Thank you very much.
Do we have one more question?
Is there one more question? Last question?
I see a Muslim here.
Sarah, let's hear from you, Sarah.
Yeah.
We'll take a photo.
Yeah, it's a
together.
group
Yeah,
picture.
I'll say this, if anyone does have questions as they marinate on this,
Yeah, I
after
guess
the
I
fact.
do have a question while I walk up to take pictures. And, can you just tell us more about the Armenian community in Jerusalem, what's left, what's not left? how
Look,
many students,
Actually,
et cetera?
this struggle united the community. You know, we worked with all the different political parties, Tashnag, Gabar, Hinchag, Faris Siraj. Everybody works together for this cause. I mean, really, it brings tears to our eyes. If you go into the tent, there used to be brothers that hadn't talked for decades, would sit next to each other. People that didn't know each other would sit next to each other, converse, meet each other. So really, this is gonna sound cliche, but our unity is our salvation, like Charan said. And together we can definitely win this. There is no doubt about it.
There are less than
Very well
2,000.
said. Very well said. I'm gonna also share with you that, this meeting will roll over for those of you who are interested in a local AMC chapter meeting. I know that Matt is here, who's our chair, Jake, who's one of our top deputies. If you're involved, if you like local high-tech politics, we stay afterwards. I think we'll meet in here.
Downstairs.
We'll be in the second floor.
There's also food.
There's also some food on the second floor,
Food like-
so that will draw people to the meeting.
Can we take a picture?
Yeah.
That's okay for you?
What's the best way to frame this picture? Where's the best place?
Here.